session about data warehousing, pledging, installment, payments, and write-offs with Alex Wong from Friends of the Israel Defense Forces. I'm Lizzie Schaefer. I run the Social Good Startup Program here at Blackbaud. I will be moderating the session and watching questions in chat as Alex is speaking. So please feel free to post any questions that you have, and we will get to those in the Q&A at the end. And then just a friendly reminder that this is being recorded. So if you like the session, feel free to share with your friends and encourage them to watch in about 24 hours when it gets posted to the event hub. With that, I'm going to hand it over to the star of the show. Alex, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much. Hi, my name is Alex Wong. I am a Director of Business Information System in FIDF, and today we're going to talk about data warehousing and specifically around pledge-related information. So let's get started. So first of all, what's the problem statement here? RENXT lacks the reporting needed for good financial report around pledges. So a lot of the time we trying to get good pledge information. The insight is helpful, but it's not giving us all the details we need. And then a lot of time we have to resort to using database view to run canned report for relating to pledge, installment, payments, and write-off. And database view can report itself is pretty limited as well. And of course, we always run into some performance issue when we go into database view, or when I say we, pretty much our staff in our organizations, whenever they go in, they'll have some performance issue running reports. And then even then we have database exports. You can use query to export, not the can report to do more work. However, there is a 99, I'm not sure if everyone or someone here out there knows that there is a 99 limit on any one-to-many pieces of information that can be outputted. And that number is 99, unfortunately. So if there is a pledge that is on monthly installments and has more than 99 installments, you're only going to get 99, and therefore causing some discrepancy in any reports you run on that. So the solution is to really build and load a data warehouse of pledge-related information to do like complex financial reporting that's relating to pledges. So we're bringing in like pledge gift information, payment gift information, write-off gift information. Just for clarity, in the world of terminology, payment and write-off is synonymous in the world of API and analysis information. So when you get payment information, you're also actually getting write-off, which is considered payment to the pledge. All installments for all pledges, we're going to get that, and all the payments paying which installment for which pledge. So that's what we're try to get. I mean, we're going to do that. Just before we dive into it, I do want to mention there are some limitations, so it makes it a little harder. It's not particularly easy to do. Is that first of all, Sky API Gift v2, I think everyone have access to it. Is in preview, so it's not completely production ready, but it's good for getting all the information you can, so no problem there. The Gift v2 endpoint can only obtain installment and payment information per pledge, so it's not like a gift list. You can get a list of all the installments or a list of all payments. You basically have to get installments per pledge and payments per pledge. And if you have a lot of pledges in the system, that's going to be a lot of API costs. And then another limitation, or I should say obstacle, is that the Gift v1, the gift list endpoint to get lists of gift actually do not provide you with write-off gift information. So in the world of Razor's Edge database, a write-off gift in itself is a gift record, like a payment record is also a gift record in itself, and it has its own system ID. However, the Sky API gift list do not provide you with write-off gift. However, you could use the get gift, which is a single get gift call to get gift that is a write-off gift. So those are some of the limitations, and we're going to try to obviously go around that. So let's get started. So first of all, some assumptions here. So excuse me, doing it live usually give me a little bit of hiccup when I talk. Sorry. Assumptions here are those gift that you already have done something to get the gift table. So I have a community post where, given that it is a year old now, there is a better way to do it, but I'm not going to go into that right now. At some point, I'll probably post another community post on top to say use this method instead. However, the assumption is you already have a gift table. You already have a gift soft credit table because one gift can have multiple soft credits, so it's a separate table. And you already have a gift split table. And that gift table currently do not have the write-off gift. So that's the assumption here. The old tutorial will be updated at some point to use the Blackboard HTTP add-in, but then, like I mentioned, it will be done at a future point in time. This post will get you these 3 tables, so you can get started with that. And of course, we're talking about data warehousing in my tutorial here, so to speak, is we're going to use the SQL Server, that instance that is on Azure. Now, of course, you could use other DBMS, not a problem. As long we use Power Automate to put stuff in it. So as long as there's a connector, which many does, from Power Automate, you should be able to use any cloud-based SQL Server instances. Okay. So a couple of setups. Again, this is pretty code-oriented, so hopefully it doesn't scare you away. You just copy it. If you don't want to make any changes, just copy it and use it, and you should be good to go. So this is a pledge installment table. So basically, it's going to give you, we're recording the obviously pledge ID, which pledge is the installment belongs to, the installment date, and then the amount of the installment. So that's basically the installment table. For those of you that is familiar with the RE database schema, it is this installment table here. So those of you that's familiar with the schema table, this is the table we're trying to replicate in the data warehouse. Next is the payment write-off table, which is basically having which pledge are we paying, which installment of which pledge are we paying, which payment gift is paying that pledge and installment, and how much of the amount is being paid. So as we know, a payment, pay cash, can be applied to multiple pledges. And within the multiple pledges, if it has multiple installments, it could be paying multiple installments. Therefore, the reason why these IDs are there to signify exactly which pledge, which installment, and which payment, and how much is being applied. Coming back to the schema quickly, it is basically the installment payment table that give you that we're trying to replicate to get all those information into the data warehouse. All right, moving on. I do have one more, which is not necessary per se, but it's good to have, and that is going to be the send reminder checkbox. As you know, in the pledge table, a pledge gift, there's a checkbox for send reminder, which can be unchecked to say, hey, this person do not want to get invoiced it. It's probably like some special situations or special donors, late leaders, like don't remind me, I'll pay every time 12/31 at the end of the year, something like that, right? However, that piece of information is not available through Sky API anywhere right now, at least last I checked, it's not anywhere. So I have a separate table to record which pledge and if the pledge should be sent a reminder. The checkbox is being on or off. 0 or 1 is basically what a bit is. So yep, also to mention that in order to populate this table, we're using REQ. Again, no API, Sky API provide that information, so we have to use REQ that runs on a schedule to populate and update this table. Okay. So first of all, there is a resource that is linked in the agenda, so you can download that. Basically, it is an export from the solution that I put the 2 flows in, and then not going to go too deep into it, but basically a solution. Think of it as like a package of software, right? It's a package that allows you to have multiple flows in it, or other pieces. It could be other things like connectors. It could be other things like Power Apps, Power BI, but Power Apps. But it's just a grouping of stuff. Think of it as like a folder, but oversimplifying it right now. But basically, when you import it, I'll quickly show you where that is. So in a Power Automate, which you're familiar with, if you go down to the solution session menu item on the left, you'll be able to import solution, and that's where you can point to the file that you can download from there. Then agenda, which is also a zip file, which should be able to get you, once you follow through with all the steps, give you this solution, which has these two flow in them. Okay, so as I mentioned, these are two flows. One thing you might want to be paying attention to, once a flow is in a solution, they cannot be exported individually anymore as a individual flow zip. I found that out the hard way, so to speak. So something to pay attention to when you, but then putting things in solution is actually is a better way of handling your customization and flows. But that's a different discussion. Let's not go into that. Okay, so in the solution is the two flow we mentioned about. One is to load all pledge, installment, and payment. One is to load all the write-off. So let's continue. So we'll go to the flow, but in the flow for installment and payment and write-off, do want to keep in mind of one thing here. We are loading up the write-off linkage, meaning we're loading up the part where, okay, this payment is paying which pledge, which installment for how much. Same with the write-off, how much of the pledge is written off. So that's not the actual write-off gift itself. Okay, so to give you a quick demonstration, a look at this, the ultimate installment table is going to have these information in it. The pledge, the date of the installment, and amount that should be paid by that date. The payment table, I specifically call it payment write-off because it also have write-off. The pledge, the installments, the payment gift ID, and how much is paying or writing off. The payment ID could be pointing to a payment gift, pay cash, or it could be pointing to a write-off gift, writing off the pledge. So within the API itself, it does not tell you if it's a payment or a write-off. Okay, so the flow, basically when you run the flow, it is going to run X number of pledges at a time. It basically will ask you how many pledges do you want to run at a time. For myself, I did a 5,000 per run. We have about 50,000 pledge, if I remember correctly. I do 5,000 per run and then just run it a couple of times. It takes some time to run it because, like I mentioned before, the limitation is you can only get installment payment on the per pledge level. You cannot get a whole list. However, to reduce time, the flow is configured to run with 10 concurrency. That means we'll be getting installment and payment of 10 pledges at a time. So it just continues to run in concurrency. And then it will continue until all the pledges and installments are stored in the SQL database server. Okay, let's move on. Now the finishing touch of this is to actually get the write-off gift, because all you got from the last one we just looked at is the write-off gift ID. We don't know anything else. For example, we don't know the write-off gift date. We don't know the write-off gift's amount. All of that information is not within the payment API. All it tells you is how much of the actual write-off gift ID. Same thing, where write-off gift flow also run with 10 concurrency. So it's going to run to get 10, making 10 calls at a time, continue until it's done. Okay. I think this is where I want to do a little show and tell before I move on to the next step. Sorry, let's move to this over. All right, so a quick thing so you can see what's going on. So once you imported it, this is the flow. Like I mentioned, it's manually triggered to say how many pledges to run, the quantity. Basically, what this does, it relies that the gift table is already populated. Like I mentioned in the assumption that the gift table already have gift information. Let's take a quick look here. Okay, so it already have, if I can spell, there we go. So I already have gift information, details like the gift type, the gift amount, the gift date, the constituent record ID, the gift record ID, all of that good stuff. That's the assumption that this table is already populated. Meaning in this table, we know what are the pledges gift. So all we're doing here is to execute a little SQL. You don't have to worry about it. All you need to really do is update the table name. If you did not call it demo gift, call it something else. Mine is called prod for production gift, but you can call it whatever you want. Make updates to these table names, okay? And then execute the necessary create table. But once you're done, what it's going to do is going to look up 5,000, the quantity we're talking about, gift ID from the gift table that is a pledge and that it is not currently existing in the installment table, meaning we actually have not yet called the API to get the information. This will give me, for example, 5,000 pledge ID. All this does is give me 5,000 pledge IDs. And then I just apply to each pledge ID, the 5,000 we're talking about, and in basically utilizing the Blackbox HTTP add-in to call the gift fee to API for installment information on that particular ID. Same with the payment information on that particular pledge ID. And all this is doing is once it's done obtaining that information, it's just going to insert all of that information in to the database. So this will result in this table being populated with the pledge ID, installment dates, and the amount. Of course, there's always an ID associated with each installment record. So that's what this is. Moving on, that's the next one. Oh, by the way, there is a little not fail safe, but anytime any error, there is also a message going to my teams. Of course, you can get rid of this action if you are not using Teams or you don't want to get the error message. You can change this to an email, for example, but basically I utilize the team message to tell me that there is errors in my flow one. I'll be talking a little more about this tomorrow when we talk about flow exception handling. Okay, so this flow basically, again, once you're done running it, keep on running until all your pledges are obtained, installment for pledges are obtained. This flow is done, and we go on to get the write-off gift. Similar concept. We have a little SQL here that basically say, hey, give me all the payment ID in the payment table. We just obtain all the payment information, right? This is the payment information that we obtain. Payment ID. This can either be a pay cash, pay start property, pay start property. So at the end of the day, it's payment to the pledge, or it could be a write-off gift to the pledge. So all I'm doing here is just telling SQL to give me all the payment ID that currently does not exist in the gift table, because we know write-off is not in the gift table. So what it's going to do is I'm going to end up with a list of all write-off gift ID, which I will just simply use the get gift endpoint, the get gift action in the Blackbox gift API to get the payment ID. This will give me the write-off information, and all I really care about is some of these fields of information, the obviously ID, the amount, the constituent, which basically is going to be the same, the date of the write-off, status, the type, which will be pledge write-off, and then when it was added, when it was last modified. So ultimately, what will end up happening is we'll get the gift information. So let's do this where the type is pledge write-off. You can see that these are all pledge write-off gifts that would not be given to you from a gift list, gift v1 endpoint for gift list. However, you'll be able to obtain this into the gift table with completing the gift table with the write-off gift information. So now that we're done getting these information, let's get back to my presentation here. Okay. The next step, which is not going to be demo, I'm going to post it in community, hopefully sooner rather than later, is once the installment payment and write-off is initially loaded, they will need to be interflowly updated because, pledges are being paid, new pledges are being put in, installment may be changed, adjustment are done. You have to obtain the latest pieces of information. So we'll start off with the slightly easier one. For updating write-off, the best route, at least what I found to be the best route, is to register the webhook for GIF. And in this session, we're not going to talk about how to do that. There's a good tutorial on community as well as on the documentation on developer.blackbox.com. Basically registering a GIF add webhook, and then whenever you check that the GIF is a write-off GIF type, then you just simply add it to the GIF table. If it's a change, meaning a change to write-off GIF, then all you need to do is either delete and add it again onto the table, or use the SQL merge function to merge the change into the GIF table. When the webhook, when a GIF delete is called, if it is a write-off GIF, then you basically delete the write-off record off the table. So that's relatively simple in terms, not simple, sorry, straightforward. It's a good amount of steps in order to get the webhook working and the actions together. But I'll, like I said, I'll add more to the community on these parts. And then the slightly harder, more difficult situation is to update installments and payment information. Before going into the sub-bullet point here, there's a couple of difficulty that I want to mention here. So when a pledge is when a pledge gift itself is updated, in the gift list last modified, you'll be able to kind of get, oh, okay, the pledge has been last modified in the last 4 hours. Let me update the information on the pledge. That's easy. But the difficult part is when a payment is applied to the pledge record itself is not changed, unfortunately. Unfortunate situation here. So meaning you actually don't know that the pledge has changed. Let's say the balance of the pledge have changed, for example. That is something that you won't know. Okay, similar thing with if a payment has been removed. The pledge record itself is not being marked as last modified. So that's something I really would like to maybe talk to someone in Blackbox to work it out. But for now, there's a workaround. Again, this is workaround. So as the gift list, when we always update the gift list. So when the gift list table is updated, within the update flow, I'm basically going to gather the gift system ID of all the pledges that have been changed. Obviously, if the pledge has changed, I want to make sure that I update the installment table and the payment table that potentially can have changed. The second bullet point is if I'll be also getting all the payments that have changed. So any pay cash gift, pledge payment type gift that has been updated, I'll be getting that information because potentially the payment gift may be now changed to pay a different pledge, for example, right? And therefore, the original pledge now has a different balance, have a different payments table information. Get all the payments gift and its related pledge information, because if you remember I don't want to say if you remember, let me show it to you. Hold on. Let's see if I can get to it rather quickly. API. developer.blackbox.com will be your home for a long time if you do a lot of customization. So in the Gift API endpoints, okay, so good. Let me see if I can find that. No, can't find it, so I'll use the schema. So basically, in the schema, potentially what get returned into JSON information is I think it's towards the bottom, if I can quickly find it. I should be more prepared for this part. I just started talking and stuff just comes up. Okay, can't exactly find it for now. So basically within this information, there will be an additional piece of property, okay, that will tell you that if this were a payment gift, it will tell you the related pledge or pledges, because a payment could be paying multiple pledges. It will tell you the pledge ID that it is paying. So I'll capture that piece of information, and along with the pledges that have been changed, which then I'll take those IDs and call the Gift V2 API for installment and payment and update the installment and payment table. A little overwhelming, I can understand, because it is quite complex because it is a workaround, unfortunately. But basically, this will allow you to continue keeping the installment and payment table up to date, so that any report you run is going to be, any financial report you run is up to date to the point when you last updated. So that's the purpose there. So, okay. The last part, before we open up for question, I guess. I think this session goes up to what, 145 or 150? I don't remember. So if I am able to load this up, give me a second. Let me just check the chat here to see if there's any question before my demo report load. But yeah, SQL hasn't really changed much. Yeah, so it's pretty much the same still. They did introduce some new functionalities, that is very helpful. Like, for example, OpenJSON is a function that is enormous. You definitely should want to look into that. If anyone want to do data warehouse, you have to know OpenJSON. OpenJSON will allow you to load thousands of records in a JSON record into the database, SQL database, in matters of seconds instead of like many minutes. No, there's not much question there. So let me go ahead and take this. Hold on. I want to make sure I get rid of some names. That should be good. Apology for the silence here, as I probably should be a little more prepared for this part of the demo. Okay, this should be good. All right, so what did my organization gain? They gained a pledge report. From being able to data warehouse the pledge pieces of information, now you'll be able to run any kind of pledge related report. One is obviously just a pledge report that gives you information. Obviously, basic information is there. Campaign fund appeal, total payment, total write-off, the balance of the gift, anything that has been overdue, end of the month due, end of the quarter due, end of the year due. Finance is asking us they want next month due because they want to do next month installment. So that's also very much easily possible. That's the basic view. And then you can do like a mailing view for invoicing, right? If you want still, of course, we can do e-invoicing. That's a different sessions, not different session, those anyway. But for those that still needs to do physical mailer, they use a mailing view that gives them all the information necessary to go ahead and build them. So for example, if we're building them, what their overdue, what their end of month dues are, and then it gives them like, oh, yeah, let's move away from there. Addresses, information, something like that. And then ultimately financial information, a finance detail view of information could be anything like how much payment came in for the pledge in the different year, 2019 payment write-off, 2020 payment write-off, so on and so forth. And also information about the next couple of years, 24 due, 25 due, 26 due, 27, blah, 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 onward. How much is due. So all of that become possible with a data warehouse of the pledge, installment, and payment information. Another quite nice thing that is being asked right now is, for example, you got cash coming in, you'll be able to differentiate, oh, is it just straight out regular cash, like straight up cash, or is it a payment cash? If it's a payment cash, is it a payment cash to this year pledge, or is it a payment cash for last year pledge or the year before pledge? Apparently, this is important for the finance team to do certain types of reporting to be able to know if a payment came in for which year pledge. So that would be something that's also possible once you have a data warehouse of pledge, installment, and payment information. That is all I have for the presentation. Let me start my sharing. Okay, don't think I see any other questions, but yeah, I will be posting on the community with this as well, along with the updates of installment and payments and write-off. Those will come in the coming, hopefully, days, not weeks, and look forward to more people be able to do some data warehousing. It's not as, well, I don't want to say it's not hard, but it's not as scary. The potential reward is very high. I would say it that way. So anyone wanting to do it should definitely check it out. These report reside in the data warehouse. No, the report is a Power BI report that basically connects to the data warehouse to obtain the data needed. So it connects to the installment table, the gift table, gift soft credit table, various different tables, and then jam them all into a report. Some of it is just dashboards that you could use do dashboard, like how much money came in which year. That can be a dashboard, but also data table that tells you exactly what you saw, which pledge, how much has been paid, how much hasn't been paid. So reports is done through Power BI. The data warehouse just basically is a warehouse for data. It obtains all the data from Sky API, puts it there, and ready for any reporting. Great. I do want to mention something. This comes up quite often on the community, and that question is like, well, I could get connectors to Power BI has connectors, and I can get information from there and then create reports. Yes, that is true. The purpose of data warehouse, I feel, has twofold. One is to obtain the data once. So let's say you have 20 different Power BI reports, and some of them uses some of the same information, for example, like gift table. Then every time you refresh, you're basically getting the information, the same information multiple times, and then presenting it on Power BI or any BI solution that you may use. That may be okay if you're really just building one or two reports. I think that should be okay. But if you're building like anything more than a dozen reports, then you should really, in my opinion, should really consider having a data warehouse that store all these information, which then being able to more easily be obtained by Power BI or any BI reporting tool to create your dashboards and reports on. That's my opinion. Was there any specific reason why you choose SQL database over the other option? Okay, so I'm not sure what other option you're talking about. I'll talk about them. The SQL database is a pretty, first of all, our organization is a Microsoft shop. We have Azure subscription on quite a few items, and we just set up a SQL there pretty easily. That's one. And then that's one reason, because of availability to us. Setting it up was not too hard. And then putting the information in was the other reason. So for example, you could potentially put all those data where? You could put it in a Excel file in SharePoint. You could put it in a Google Sheet connecting to Google. You could put it in a SharePoint list. There are options there as well to put it elsewhere. However, the problem is going to be performance. That's the biggest reason. Why? Like I mentioned, open JSON, for example, not for this particular situation, because installment payment and write-off, you have to get one at a time. So that's no difference than putting into a list or Excel file. However, considering we have approximately 500,000 constituent records, we have approximately like 1.4 million gift records, okay? And Sky API lists allow you to get 5,000 records at a time. SQL, by running SQL Server, there's a function called OpenJSON, which I mentioned before. Very useful, very important to use. That will take all 5,000 records in one JSON return from one API call and dumps it into the data warehouse in about 2 seconds. If you need to put 5,000 records into a SharePoint list, you have to loop through 5,000 loops of every record, and then adding that one record of constituent, one record of gift into the Excel file, into the Google Sheet, into the SharePoint list. And that is a tremendous amount of overhead for every single loop. And now you're talking about every record taking 1 or 2 seconds versus 5,000 records in 1 to 2 seconds. Okay, I think that's all the questions. Oh, I got 6 minutes to spare.
Yeah, and I've just got a couple of closing wrap things. So if there are more questions, feel free to post them, because like Alex said, we do have about 6 more minutes, but I will just go ahead and get this out of the way. Thank you so much for everyone's time today. Great session from Alex. I love seeing all the engagement in the chat. I did just post a session survey link. If everyone could please take the time to fill that out for this session and all of the others that visit. Of course, we want to know how you feel about the content that we are presenting, but also our top rated sessions are going to get a golden ticket to bbcon this year, which, if you have not heard, we'll have our first in-person option for bbcon since 2019. There will be virtual options also, but if you can make it in person, we would love to see you October 22nd to 24th at the Colorado Convention Center in Denver. With that, I think we are a wrap on questions, but I'm pretty sure that you can find Alex around over the next day and a half or so. Thank you again to Alex and all of our audience, and we'll see you in the next session.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.